I think there are two things I would like to focus on from the forum. Firstly is that we live in an age in which the progress in technology and the economy are going to be driving politics much more than before. And this creates obviously certain risks, but it also creates amazing opportunities. We would like to look at the opportunities that emerge in the world of tomorrow. And secondly, I think the role of middle powers like the United Arab Emirates and other countries who are geographically located at a crossroad, who have access to human or natural resources, have greater power to do good in the world today than perhaps in the past. So I would say that my biggest conclusion from the discussions in the last 2 days is that the new superpower of the future is a group of countries that are smaller, that are more agile, that are resilient, that are open to change, and that have the ability to create the foundations of a new international multilateral system that is fair and that allows for the benefits of globalization without the risks and the downsides to continue. The United Arab Emirates is in a leading position in this sphere, and its partnership with other countries is very much a key element to developing this future. It's difficult to predict the future, but I should hope that we will see an end to the destruction of Gaza well before the beginning of next year. Because I can speak to this from experience. What is happening there is an unprecedented tragedy, and the people of Gaza need not just the physical rebuilding of the buildings that have been destroyed. They need their lives to be rebuilt with a prospect that is sustainable for the future. The only way that can happen is if we focus on how the international community, in partnership with the Palestinian leadership, with Israel, can bring about the long overdue existence of an independent Palestinian state. Without that prospect, every other effort to stop the fighting, to reconstruct Gaza, will be very, very temporary. I'm also hoping that the next year we will see a resolution to the war in Ukraine, which is a tragedy that is also quite immense and affects global politics and trade and the ability of millions of people in Ukraine to live a normal life. It isolates Russia from key partners with which it can work for its development. And I'm really hopeful that well beyond that, well before the next year, we will see significant progress on the Sudan. There are encouraging signs with a partnership which is emerging now between the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the UK, and the United States in mediating between the warring factions in the Sudan, but a lot of work still needs to be done on that front. Millions of people are at risk in Sudan because of famine, not just because of the fighting, but of sheer hunger, and this is a tragedy that needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, these are not the only three conflicts that are critical for the coming period. There are many other places in Africa and elsewhere where the risks of escalation are high, and where the risks for development and for prosperity are very, very, very significant. So a lot of work needs to be done, but I'm quite hopeful that with what we're seeing in terms of the efforts, particularly on the Sudan in the last few months, we will see significant progress. The rest of the world will have to work with and live with whoever the American people decide to elect their president. But for me, the more important question perhaps is how does the Middle East, how does the countries in the Middle East, their leaderships, develop their own capabilities and their own capacities to stand on their own feet, to reduce the external interference in the region, to reduce the risks that come out from outside of the Middle East, and to really work for the benefit of their people. Because the Middle East is an area where you see both. You see amazing progress in terms of social development, in terms of inclusion, in terms of economic development, but you also see parts of the region that are still very much impoverished. People live in isolation, and certainly parts into the region where people live under the constant threat of war.